In ancient China, there was a wise king named Zhu. He ruled over a prosperous kingdom, and his people admired him for his wisdom and fairness. However, despite his strength and power, King Zhu had a deep secret fear. He was terrified of the mountains. Every time he looked toward the towering peaks that surrounded his kingdom, his heart filled with unease. He feared the mountains because he could not understand them. They seemed vast and impenetrable and full of danger. One day, while walking through his palace garden, King Zhu encountered an old man with a long white beard, dressed in simple robes. The old man was sitting peacefully by a pond, watching the water flow. "Who are you?" King Zhu asked, intrigued by the man's calm presence. "I'm a humble traveler," the old man replied, "and I have come to share wisdom with those who seek it." The king, eager to overcome his fear of the mountains, decided to speak to the man about it. "I have ruled my kingdom with strength and courage," King Zhu said, "but I'm afraid of the mountains. I cannot help but feel small and powerless in their presence. They loom over me like giants, and I do not know how to overcome this fear." The old man smiled and stood up, his eyes filled with understanding. "Let me take you to the mountains," he said. "You must confront your fear directly, for only by facing it can you understand it." Reluctantly, King Zhu agreed, and the two set out on a journey to the base of the highest mountain. As they climbed higher, the king grew anxious. The trees thinned and the air became cooler. The sounds of the forest faded, and only the wind and the sound of their footsteps filled the silence. King Zhu's heart raced as they approached the steep cliffs. Finally, they reached the summit, where the old man asked the king to sit beside him and gaze out at the vast landscape below. The king hesitated, unsure of what to expect. The old man spoke softly. "Look out over the valley, my king. What do you see?" "I see the kingdom I rule," the king replied. "The forests, the rivers, the fields. I see the entire world beneath me." "And how does it feel to look down upon it?" asked the old man. "I feel powerful," King Zhu said, "like I can control it all." The old man smiled. "Now, look up at the mountain. What do you see?" The king glanced up at the towering peak. "I see a mountain that stretches far into the sky, beyond my reach. It is beyond my control, and it fills me with fear." The old man nodded. "This is where your fear comes from. You fear the mountain because you see it as something that stands above you, something you cannot control. But understand this, the mountain is not your enemy. It is a part of nature, and it exists just as you do. You cannot control it, but you can learn from it. The mountain does not fear the sky, nor does it worry about the valley below. It simply exists, enduring the winds, the rain, and the seasons. It is steadfast because it accepts its place in the world." King Zhu thought deeply about the old man's words. "But how does that help me overcome my fear?" The old man smiled again. "You are like the mountain. Your fear comes not from the mountain itself, but from your own resistance to it. You fear what you cannot control, but true strength comes from accepting what is beyond your control. The mountain does not fight the wind, the sun, or the seasons. It stands firm and endures. You too must learn to accept these things. You cannot change and face them with courage. Fear comes from resisting the inevitable, but peace comes from embracing it." King Zhu closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He realized the truth is in the old man's words. He had spent so many years trying to control everything around him, but it was his fear of the mountain that made him feel small. When the king returned to his palace, he no longer felt afraid of the mountains. Instead, he saw them as part of the natural world, like all the other things he ruled over. He understood that his strength lay not in controlling everything, but in accepting life's challenges with calm and courage.